Well, the summer camps are over. School has started. And the fall holy days are coming up pretty fast. We'll be going to the Feast of Tabernacles very soon. We all look forward to that. And I'm sure many of you made some new friends and renewed existing friendships at summer camp. And I'm sure you're looking forward to the Feast of Tabernacles, where you will do the same at the Feast of Tabernacles. And Seth brought that up in his message about, the friendships that are developed and how important those friendships are. So I'm sure that you'll be looking forward to doing that at whatever feast site that you go to. It's good for you to make friends, to have friends. It's good for the church to do that. In fact, in Acts 2:42, you don't need to turn there, you can just jot that down. Acts 2:42, Paul mentions fellowship, making friends as an element vital for church growth. It's vital for church growth to have fellowship, like the fellowship we have here today, and the fellowship and the friendship that young people develop at camp and here at church, and other activities like the YATS activities and the socials that we have and then the sporting events, all of those things. They're all opportunities for church growth. Our children are the future. And so these are opportunities for the growth in the church. You all have an opportunity to develop friendships at these activities, and that's a good thing. And we as adults have the same opportunity in those activities that we have in the church. Well, many young people in society today and in the church make friends and develop relationships online. That's where relationships nowadays are developed and nurtured, if you will. In fact, according to Pew Research, approximately 67% of young people in the U.S. make friends or develop friendships online. 67% make friends or develop them online. Now, the breakdown on that 67% is 36% use Facebook or Twitter to initiate friendship. 21% use online video games to make friendships. 6% use YouTube, and 4% use blogging. So these digital relationships, friendships, are becoming the norm in society today. That's the norm. Well, these digital relationships and friendships are not wrong per se. They are another way of establishing communications and making contact with others that would not be possible any other way. In fact, we in the church, we use online social networks to preach the gospel, and very effectively. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just shocking to me how many young people actually do that, and how many adults do that. I don't have that statistic. I was just looking for the youth. Well, many good friendships and relationships have been developed through online sources, as well as the old school method, as my grandson tells us that my wife and I, we're old school. And at first I was kind of taking that as an insult, and I said, that ain't so bad. It's really not so bad. But, online sources are used as well as the old school method of making friends. And that old school method, we fall into that remainder of 33% of people who make face-to-face relationships. And those relationships are very important, face-to-face relationships. including for our young people, and they get to do that here and develop those friendships here. But there are a lot of people that use those online friendships. And both of these means of establishing relationships and friendships need to be carefully handled. You as parents, you need to be involved with that so you know what your children are doing. My grandson, we had my grandson out, and we were looking at, he has a video game on an iPod. And there's all kinds of people on there, and he's playing other people, and he knows them and has their name and communicates with them. And so I was just looking at the number of people, and there's not only children on those games, but there are adults on those games. So the need to be careful, to carefully handle, to ensure the quality of these relationships that our young people are getting online is very important, that we need to watch that and be careful with that to make sure that the right relationships are being developed. So friendships are very important in your lives, everybody's lives, especially the teens we have here today. And that's really who I want to focus on today is the teens, but that doesn't mean the rest of you can take the old school method of falling to sleep and not listening to his message. All of these things can be used in your lives too. In fact, for the young people to be able to use it, they're going to have to see some good examples. And that's where the old school comes in there. Us old school people are going to have to set the right example. Well, with that in mind, I would like to ask you a question, and this will be the subject of my message today. And that question is, how do you build and strengthen your friendships? How do you build and strengthen your friendships? The friendships that you may make, that you may already have or will make in the future. How do you build and strengthen those relationships? Now, there's probably many books and many articles. I know there is because I've looked through a lot of them in the past week or so as I was looking at this subject on this. And the information that I gathered from this is from a number of articles that were produced in the church years ago. Some, and especially the ones that are on Life, Hope, and Truth, are very good. There is a whole section on friendships that is just very valuable for any relationships that we have. And I encourage you to look at those. So how do you build and strengthen your friendship? Well, to build and strengthen your friendships, you need to understand that there are things that God created to help to build and strengthen relationships. There's things that God created to help you build right relationships. And God is all about relationships. The two great commandments: love God and love your neighbor. Those are all about relationships. So God is all about relationships. They are very important to Him. And if we are God's people, they have to be important to us. And we should encourage good relationships and friendships for our children, these pearls of great price that we have. From the very beginning, God created man, and by creating him, He knew that man would have needs. He knew that man would have needs. He created him. He knew exactly what he was going to need. He knew that man would need food to eat. He would have to have food to eat, water to clean with, and to drink. He knew that man would have to be in an environment that he could live in, that he would feel comfortable in. And he knew that man would need relationships. And He created all those things in creation. You can look at it in Genesis 1 and 2. It's just laid out there exactly what He created. He created the perfect environment for man to grow and develop. And he knew that man needed relationships. Well, Adam had a need for relationships with God. And that was developed over time. God created Adam, and God taught Adam. Face-to-face contact, good old school teaching of how to take care of the garden, how to take care of himself, what to do, what not to do. Had him name the animals. So he taught him. He worked with him. But God created a need in Adam. There was a need in Adam for a relationship with someone like him, a human being. He created that need in Adam. It is written in Genesis 2, verse 18. You can turn there if you'd like. Genesis 2, verse 18. I'm just going to read the last part of that scripture. And he said, "It is not good for man to be alone." It is not good for man to be alone. We heard that beautiful song. Isn't that what the title of that song was about? You're not alone. It's not good for man to be alone. God knows that. So God created Eve, a woman, to be a companion with Adam. This was the creation of the marital relationship between a man and a woman, which Satan is trying to destroy. You can see that in society today. Satan is trying to destroy this God-ordained relationship of marriage. But he will not be successful because God has the ultimate power, and marriage is part of God's great plan. It's all part of that. In fact, one of the benefits of being in God's church is that eventually, at Christ's return, we will become the bride of Christ. So marriage is very much a part of God's great plan. And it's very important to remember that. And we actually should be praying about that because of the way things are in society. Young people are seeing less and less value in marriage. We have the marriage seminars. We've had one and we're going to have another. There's great value in a marriage relationship. It's the ultimate friendship that God created. When he knew that man should not be alone, that's the relationship he set up for man. It's that marital relationship. Well, with this understanding of that type of relationship, the marriage relationship, we must also understand that not all relationships God created would be those between a man and a woman. Men and women would have relationships with other men and women called friendships. God created within you, each one of you, a need to not be alone. There is this need to not be alone that can be satisfied through other companionships besides marriage. And I am talking about friendship. Christ set the example for this type of relationship. He set the example for this in his relationship with the disciples and their relationship with him. They became closer to each other as they spent time together, and they needed each other. There was a need that each one of them had. Christ needed them, and they needed Christ. They took time to develop the friendship that they needed so that they would be able to handle a great responsibility that they had of preaching the gospel. We can learn something from that. He developed a friendship with them so that they could preach the gospel. I would think that that's probably a good reason why we should develop friendships here, so that we can preach the gospel. And we'll go into some of the things here today, why we need that, why we need that kind of relationship to be able to do what God has called us to do. Let's turn over to John 15. John 15. And we'll see where Christ established this friend relationship. John 15, verses 13 through 15. John 15, verses 13 through 15. Verse 13. It says, "Greater love has no man than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends." Verse 14. "You are my friends if you do what I command you." Verse 15. "No longer do I call you servants, for servants does not know what his master is doing." He doesn't know what his master is doing. "But I call you friends. For all things that I heard from my Father, I have made known to you." You know, the relationship that Christ had with the Father made information available to him, and he shared that information with his friends, the apostles. We share the information that God reveals to us here at services, how we live our life in Bible studies. We share that information. We're following the example of Jesus Christ. So Christ here establishes friendship with those who follow him, those who obey him. And he shares a special relationship, a friendship with them. You need this kind of relationship with Christ. Each one of us needs that kind of relationship. And he needs that kind of relationship with you. You need it, and he needs it. Or else he would not have said this in John 15, 13 through 15. And he would not have created within us this need to not be alone, the need for a good friendship, a right kind of friendship. He created in you a need for friendship. So how do you build and strengthen your friendships? What are some of the ways to do that? How can you do that? You're doing one of those here today, you young people, and many of you adults that have been serving. That's one of the ways that you do that. That's one of the ways that we learn to be good friends, by serving, by doing things for someone else other than ourselves. That's one of the ways. It is through friendships that you develop a need to do things for others, to serve others. Your friends have a need for you to serve them. They have needs, and you are to serve them. And you have needs, and they serve you. They do things for you. Many friendships are developed that way. Oh, you have some situation come up, and you need something done, and you just don't know what to do, and then this person comes along, and they're there to help you, and they do something for you, and you develop a relationship, a friendship with them. So serving each other, doing things for each other, is a way to strengthen friendship. It creates a dependency on each other that is so vital for friendship. A lot of times we live in a very society where we all think that independence is so important, but that's not the case. When we are called into the church, it's not about us being independent. It's about us realizing how dependent we are on God for our future, for being a part of his kingdom. So that special friendship that we develop with God through Jesus Christ, and him giving us God giving us his Holy Spirit, we develop this dependency on God. We rely on God. Well, shouldn't that be what you should be able to do in a friendship? Shouldn't you be able to rely on that other person? And that's what doing things and serving does for that relationship. You develop a desire to do things for someone else, and they develop the desire to do things for you. It's very important that we develop that. You fulfill a need. You know, everybody has a need to be needed. We like to know that somebody needs us. And that's how you fulfill that need, by doing something for someone. And you feel fulfilled. You feel you have value, like you have value whenever you fulfill somebody's need and you help them or you do something for them. You all of you have needs in your friendships, and that's just being human. You know, being human, you have needs. And true friends fulfill each other's needs. Christ set the example with his disciples, and they did the same thing in serving him, by doing things for him and by doing things for each other, wherever they had needs. Sometimes we have to ask our friends to do things for us, and they willingly fulfill that need. But a true friend, and this is something that you have to remember, a true friend will never ask you to do anything that compromises God's values or the values your parents teach you in your home. A true friend will never ask you to compromise those values. In Galatians 5, verse 13, it states, and I'll read this, you don't need to turn there, but through love, serve one another. In other words, but through love, do things for others. It's important that we do things. If you feel alone, do something for somebody. Get involved here at church doing something. You say, well, what can I do? If you see something that needs to be done, ask, okay, is it okay if I do that? Or can I help you? Or can you show me how to do that so I can help you later on? Be involved with it. You see trash on the floor, pick it up. That's not where it belongs. If it's of value, it could be there. But trash doesn't belong on the floor. It belongs in a trash can. That's something everybody could do. We could even teach our children to do that. Pick up their own stuff, put it in their bag. Prepare their bag before they get here. So there's always something you can do yourself. You know, it's a little thing. Just being part of the audience and being here on time and attentive. That's doing something to help everybody. So you have to be able to do things. One of the best ways you can strengthen your friendship is by serving and by doing things for each other. Well, fulfilling this need you have by serving and doing things for each other develops something else. The second thing, and that is trust. That's what's developed as we learn about each other, as we work together, as we serve together, as we do things for each other, we develop trust. So trust would be the second way to build a friendship. And trust is being able to depend on each other. And that's what friends should be able to do. Now, looking back at the relationship of Christ and his disciples and their relationship with each other, they were developing a trust as they went around and Christ was teaching them, and he was preaching the gospel. He was doing his work, and he was teaching them at the same time he's doing his work. You know, we're being taught at the same time that we are preaching the gospel as the church. You know, and that's what Christ was doing in the 3.5 years of his ministry. He was teaching these men to carry on after he wasn't there physically. And that's what we're doing. We're passing that on. And in a friendship, you do that. It's important to do that. To be able to trust each other, to work alongside each other, to spend time together. That's how you develop trust. You spend time together. You communicate with each other. It took time to develop their relationship and their friendship as the disciples before they were prepared to do what Christ was preparing them to do. Long-lasting, right relationships take time to develop. You learn about each other in different situations. You know, when you're serving together and then you have a different situation, you're working with somebody, you learn how people handle different things. And so that's where you develop a trust. You can depend on them. Oh, well, in this situation, he's going to react this way, or she's going to react this way. You know that. Or can you depend on them to act the right way? You know, that's what you learn. That's how you build that trust up. You develop a confidence in someone. And you believe the best of someone. You don't think the worst of someone. If you're thinking that, then there's no trust being developed. You know, so you have to think the best. You have to be positive about it. You have to have that attitude of trust. Because that attitude of trust produces growth in a relationship. God does that with us. Our relationship with him. You know, as we trust him, he begins to trust us. He gives us a little bit more information, a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more understanding, because he knows he can trust us with it. He realizes that we're not going to go off and do something on our own, that we're going to do what he wants us to do. This information that God has for us and for the world is very powerful. He wants to make sure that the people who have it know how to use that power. Because that's the thing that's going to run the world when Christ returns. And we have to be ready to handle that. And so in our relationships, we have to develop that trust. Trust is something that develops over time as a relationship is tested and proven. You know, you go through difficulties and trials with your friends and family members and your spouse, your brothers and sisters. You go through tests and trials in those relationships where you see how your friend reacts in those situations. You know, Moses and Abraham are a good example of people from the Bible where they were tested and they were proven over time. They were tested beyond what I think I could handle, that's for sure. But they were tested over time, and they were found to be trustworthy. And the Lord considered them friends. In fact, you don't need to turn there, but Moses in Exodus 33, verse 11, it says, "So the Lord spoke to Moses face to face." There's that old school type of relationship. God talked to Moses face to face. The only other person that had happened to before was Adam. And God spoke to Moses face to face. And it says here, "So the Lord spoke to Moses face to face as a man speaks to a friend." Moses was a friend of God. See, so what we're doing with these friendships, developing this trust, serving one another, we're developing a type of relationship that mirrors our relationship with God. That kind of relationship. Abraham is another example. In Isaiah 41, verse 8, God said, "Abraham, my friend." Wow. To have God, the creator of everything, call you his friend. It's because he trusted them. And they didn't give him any reason to not trust him. And they trusted in God. So understanding that you have a need to serve, to do things for others, and have this positive expectation. That's what trust is a positive expectation. You're looking at this person and they're doing things that are right, and so you develop this positive expectation. You can anticipate they're going to do it right because they have done it right. They've proven themselves, so you trust them. So you develop this positive expectation and trust to build and strengthen your friendships. And this leads to another way in building and strengthening our friendships, and that is caring about each other. When you say, well, isn't that what serving is? Yeah, it is. Trusting, you're caring about somebody. It all goes together. It all fits together. But caring is another way. The disciples and their relationship with Christ and his relationship with them showed a caring about each other as they helped each other in their friendships. Caring is the ability to help. Listen to this. Caring is the ability to help someone grow. Can you help someone grow? When you have a plant in the garden and you're helping it to grow, aren't you? You're doing things. You're making sure it has fertilizer and water. You're doing things to help it grow. So that's why, and you care for it. That's what you say. Okay, well, you have to care for this plant. I remember my dad giving me a tomato plant when I was little. And he showed me how to take care of it, and so I had to take care of it. It never had tomatoes because I kept it in my room and no chance to pollinate or anything, but man, that thing grew. It was a big plant. But he taught me how to care for that plant. And that's what we are to do, is we are to care about each other as we help each other to develop and our friendships to develop. Caring is the ability to help others to grow. It is the opposite of using another person to satisfy your own needs. You have those kind of friendships that develop, and they're really not friendships, but you have these acquaintances that you get, and they make friends with you. You think they're friends, but they're artificial friends. They just want something from you. And so you have to be very careful about that. And how do you know that somebody's going to do that? Well, you need to, if you look into God's Word, if you ask your parents, if you get counseling and wisdom from someone and have them teach you what to look for in a good friend, and you see somebody that doesn't have those characteristics, well, you know how to select a good friend from a bad friend. Because there's a lot of bad friends out there that they just want to satisfy themselves and not you. In Proverbs 17, verse 17, it says, "A friend loves at all times." That's what caring is. Loves you at all times. Good times, bad times, times when you're upset, times in difficulties. A friend loves at all times. Caring is showing loving concern for others without a desire for personal gain. Can you care about somebody else without wanting something in return? Well, I was nice to you. How come you can't reciprocate and be nice to me? Well, that's not caring. Caring is not wanting that to be reciprocated. You want to do something for someone else because you get more out of that than you would anything that they could give you. You understand what caring is. You understand that caring is love. You know, the best way to get love is to give it. When you give love, you cannot outgive that fruit of the Spirit. You can give it to everybody, and you will end up with more than you could believe. You just can't outgive love. Caring is seeing the good in each other and not the faults. You know, with your people you know, people you're around, think about it. Are you looking at their faults all the time? Are you looking at what's wrong with them? Or are you trying to find something good about them? Well, if you're looking for their faults, you're not strengthening your relationships. You're weakening them. But if you're looking for the good in a person and you can encourage that good, then you're caring for them. You're loving them. You're showing them that you want to see them grow. You know, there was I don't know whether it was true or not. I never tried it with anything I grow. And believe me, I do not have a green thumb. My thumb is just as brown as it can be. I can't grow anything, really. I can eat a lot of stuff, but I can't necessarily grow it. It's just some people have that knack, and I never did. But when you're caring for a plant, there was this study years ago, and I don't remember what school it was in, but they had people yelling and doing all kinds of stuff to plants, and the plants withered. They had the same fertilizer, the same food and everything as a plant that wasn't being yelled at. And then these plants that were being yelled at, they withered up and died. Now, I don't know if that's scientific or not, but that's pretty interesting to me that, you know, that a plant would respond to how somebody is caring for them. It's interesting that a plant would do that. Just think what a human being would do. Just think about that as being a friend. You know, we have to be careful with the relationships that we have, and caring for someone is you know, not finding their faults and not judging them. You know, that seems to be a preoccupation with everything today, especially with all the commentaries that we have on TV and news, and it seems like society is becoming very judgmental and judging people, and it seems to be the norm. But you know, and it's not good to do that. It's not good for us to pass judgment on us. But that doesn't mean that not using good judgment in caring for a person. You have to use judgment. There's a big difference in judging someone and using judgment in dealing with someone. You have to use judgment to be able to care for them properly, to give them the thing that they need, to help them through a situation and dealing with a situation. So we have to be careful with that and to use judgment in caring for a person. In a situation that creates compromise of godly values, you know, if you're dealing with a friend and you're caring for a friend, and this way that they want to be cared for is going to cause you to compromise God's values, you need to step back and think about that. You might want to seek some counseling, get some advice from someone who has had friendships before and gone through those type of situations. You know, unfortunately, it seems like more and more that many times counseling occurs after a mistake rather than before one can occur or the situation takes place. All the elements of having a strong relationship, all the ways of having a strong friendship and relationship require wisdom on your part. And you can't get it on your own. You can't buy it anywhere. It's taught. And then you learn it through experience and guidance and direction from your parents, from the church, from God. You get that guidance and direction. You have that wisdom that you gain from them. And your maturity, as a young person, your maturity is going to be measured by how you display wisdom in your actions. Your maturity is going to be measured by that, how you use wisdom. It doesn't mean that you can't be a kid and you can't have fun and you can't enjoy things. You know, I like fun. I love it. I wish I could have it all the time. There's only one thing that comes closer to fun for me, and that's sugar. You know, I like sugar. Chocolate. We were talking about that before services. You put chocolate and sugar together, and you got me. I just like it. Well, that's what we have to do. We have to put these things together. You young people, you have to put these things together. The wisdom of your parents, the things that you are developing here by being at church, rubbing shoulders with other people, with all those smiling faces that we saw at camp. That's all the stuff that you put together that shows that you are mature and wise. You put that together in a package. You know, a lot of times, I know when I was young, I thought my parents were what is it with these people, you know? They wanted me to do this and that, and I didn't want to do any of it. But now I think they're the smartest people in the world. Because they knew what was good for me and what wasn't. And I was too self-centered and too selfish to realize that. Unfortunately, later on in my life, I was able to come into the church. People nurtured me. People mentored me. I had people guiding me, giving me instruction, correcting me. And it helped me to grow. And that's what the church does for your friendship. That's how the church cares for you. Each one of you, it doesn't matter whether you're young or not. That's how the church cares for you. It's all available. We have to take advantage of it. For caring to be genuine, it has to be shown to others besides yourself. That's how you know that you are caring for someone. You know, you may think, oh, well, I'll do this. I'm helping this person out. Well, are you doing it for them or are you doing it for you? If you're doing it for you, then it's not caring. Yeah, well, I take it back. It is. It's caring for you. If you're doing it for your benefit. But doing something for others and caring for others and showing others besides yourself that you care about them and you want to do things for them and help them, making sure that they grow. So for caring to be genuine, it has to be shown to others besides us, much like the young people are doing here today in serving us. They're caring about us as they serve our congregation. This is what serving is caring. Caring can be giving, another way caring fits the bill is that in words of encouragement for each other. That's how you can care for somebody. Sometimes you can't do something physical for someone, but you can say an encouraging word. You can pay a sincere compliment to someone, and that's caring for them, especially within our own families. We should be doing that more often than not and encouraging each other. Encouraging words are important. So Christ set the example of caring in the way that he cared for the disciples, and he was patient with them. Caring is a great way to strengthen friendships. Well, along with caring, another way to strengthen friendships is to show compassion to people, to a person. Show compassion. Who may be, someone who is suffering or hurting, not just physically, but emotionally. Compassion is feeling someone's pain when they are feeling pain, and feeling joy when they are feeling joy and happiness. Can you be happy for somebody else? Or does you, I wish that would have happened to me. When something good happens to somebody else. Well, that's not compassion. That's not loving someone, caring about somebody else. That's caring about yourself. That's just vanity is all that is. So we have to make sure that we're showing compassion in not only when someone is hurting, but when they are, in a good mood because of something joyful that has happened in their life. Showing compassion is being able to understand a situation. Understand a situation and how it affects your friend. So you have to be close to be able to understand how it affects your friend. Compassion is being unselfish and showing concern for others. You might be in a situation where something bad has really happened to them or their family. And, I don't know how many times I've said this. And when I say it, I said, well, that's not what I should have said. But there is something else that you can say instead of that. Well, what I usually say is, oh, I'm sorry. Call me if you need anything. Well, that's not the thing to say. The thing to say is, I'm sorry this has happened to you. What can I do to help? You're there right then. That's when they need it. Now, if they say, I'll call you, that's their choice. That they can call, they said that. But don't put it off on them. They feel bad about what is going on, and it's going to be hard for them to call for help. So caring for them, showing compassion for them, you say, I'm sorry this is happening to you. How can I help? What can I do? Or if you know what needs to be done, do it. And help them out. That's showing compassion. Galatians 6 verse 2 says, bear one another's burdens. And that's what compassion is, bearing another person's burdens. You think about something that happens with, to someone is, oh, that's terrible. I hate that has happened. And we may pray about it. We may do something. We may not. Well, we have to have compassion. God is trying to teach us to work with each other and to have that compassion, that sensitivity to the situations that other people are going through. Well, the final element to building and strengthening a friendship is commitment, loyalty, being committed to a friend. Commitment is realizing someone is not perfect and loving them anyway. I married somebody that's very committed to me. Very good friendship. Because she knows I'm not perfect. But she loves me anyway. At least I think so. I think I remember her telling me that she loves me. And I can see her laughing back there, so she must. Now, God is committed to you being in His family. He is committed to that. You have great value in God's eyes. He values you so much that he sacrificed his only begotten Son for you. That is his commitment to you. That's a pretty big commitment, isn't it? Giving up that. He doesn't look at you for what you are, what we are. He doesn't look at us for what we are, but for what we can be. He sees what we can be. And parents, we need to look at our children that way. We can very easily evaluate our children that, this guy isn't going anywhere. Well, get on your knees and help him get someplace. Help him out. Think about what he can be and work towards that. Or she can be and work towards that. That's a commitment to someone. That's loyalty to someone. All of you, as an imperfect person, show your commitment, your loyalty to another imperfect person. It may be your friend. It may be your husband, your wife, a parent to a child to a parent, and a member of God's church to another member of God's church. And that is what you were called to do. Your commitment is to God, and these are God's people. So you need to be committed to them. That's the kind of friendship God has with you, and that's the kind of friendship he wants you to pass on to everybody else in this room, young and old, internet savvy and old school savvy. We have to pass on that commitment. Commitment is, in a friendship, is sacrifice. That's what commitment is. It's sacrifice. And that you are willing to make the choices that are necessary to help someone else succeed in this way of life. Are you willing to do that? And to not compromise God's laws or the values in your family? Are you willing to commit to this way of life? A young person, you say, well, I'm not baptized. I'm just here. My parents make me come. Well, what's in it for me? Well, there's a commitment that is made to you. And just like before, the wisdom that you have, is how you deal with it. Your wisdom in dealing with that will be measured. You want your parents to commit to you. You want to be successful. They want you to be successful. You don't think that they're giving you the things that you need to be successful. Well, your commitment needs to be to God. And if your commitment is to God, then you will be able to deal with whatever family situation you're in. Because God won't let you fail. He doesn't want you to fail. People want you to fail. Satan wants you to fail. But God does not want you to fail. So you have the most powerful being there is committed to your success. I think that maybe you might want to be committed to that also. And that's what makes a friendship strong, is that commitment, that loyalty. You can depend on that. Commitment is something you can depend on. When somebody is committed to you. Commitment is being able to do the right thing without regards of compromising what is right in God's eyes. Commitment is being able to do the right thing without regards of compromising, without regrets of compromising what is right in God's eyes. Don't have any regrets in your relationships. Make a commitment to having a right kind of relationship in your friendships, with your family, with God. Don't compromise what is right. Okay, let's summarize. Let's look at these things. First, you need to be able to do things for your friend. That's one of the ways that you strengthen your relationship. You do things for your friend. You serve them. Second thing is trust must be developed over time. It takes time. Don't rush into anything. Take time. Get advice from your parents when you're making a new friend. Hey, Dad, what do you think about this person? My wife is very analytical. And she can size people up pretty quick. I think the only time that she ever made a mistake at that was probably with me. But use your parents, use your friends, use people in this audience here to help you in developing trusting relationships. And the third thing is unselfish caring for someone. The fourth thing is compassion, because compassion develops understanding between friends, a softness between friends. And commitment, it is the personal sacrifice without compromising what is right. When I went through these things and I was collecting all this information, one of the things I realized that it was very much like the love languages that we've had in Growing Kids God's Way and in the marriage seminar, that many of these things parallel those love languages. And that's what it's about, is making sure that we love each other. So your friendship and relationship in life are a means for you to develop your relationship with God. That's what friendships are for. They teach you how to develop a relationship with God. That is why friendships are so important, so that you can develop a relationship with God. Remember what Christ said in John 15, verse 13. He says, "Greater love has no man than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends." God values his relationship and friendship with you. You should value that relationship with him by being a good friend.